This is Truth Be Told.
That not only are there reptilians here,
new evidence of UFO fleets.
We were close to nuclear war.
To help you transform so that you can live your highest truth.
We're not being told just because we're not ready for it.
Radio stations of frequency, vibrational.
I was a homicide detective with LAPD.
UFOs increase. Visitations. We've all heard the song, "Get your motor running and get out on the highway." Well, that's exactly what our guest today did. John Russell, paranormal investigator and psychic, jumped on his motorcycle and traveled across the U.S., met some unusual encounters along the way. On the magical ride as he traveled thousands of miles off the beaten path and encountered Civil War phantoms, crop circles, ghostly owls, and Native American spirits in a haunted forest. This is right up our alley at Truth Be Told, riding with ghosts, angels, and the spirits of the dead. And John's going to take us on that journey with him today, right here on Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios, for the first time, author, paranormal investigator, and psychic, John Russell. Hey, John.
How's it going? I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
I am excited about it too. And, you are leading the way for the Halloween season. So thank you for being the, I hate to say opening act, but
Well, that works. That works. And Halloween's one of my favorite holidays, naturally. So I'm proud to be the leadoff batter.
Perfect. Well, we're here to talk about your book, Riding with Ghosts, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead, but I know a lot of people like to jump right into the meat of it, but I want to get to know you a little bit before we do that, because I've not had you on before. You are a psychic medium, is that correct?
That's correct. I've been a professional psychic for over 50 years now.
50? You don't even look it.
Well, bless your heart. I appreciate it. The camera's kind to me today.
You have a good filter on, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So how did you first start? Because, I think I've had many psychics on, and we've talked about everybody has psychic abilities. We just don't know about them, or we're not in tune with them. When did you first find out about your abilities as a psychic?
Well, that happened when I was between 5 and 6 years old. When I was 5 years old, I was sound asleep in bed, and I woke up one night in the middle of the night for no apparent reason. I was just completely wide awake, no drowsiness, no grogginess. And I thought, well, this is really strange. And I thought, well, maybe there was a noise outside that woke me or something. So I laid there in bed and listened, didn't hear anything. And my parents had left the nightlight on down the hallway so I could see to get up at night, go to the bathroom or whatever. And my bedroom doors open. The light from the nightlight was coming in the bedroom. And so I let my eyes accustom to that. I raised up on my elbows just to kind of look around my bedroom. And as I looked down the hallway, around one of the doorways in the hallway, this elderly black gentleman was peering around the doorway at me into my bedroom. And I screamed bloody murder because my family was white. We didn't have anybody black living with us. I don't think we even had any black friends at the time. So my assumption as a 5-year-old child was somebody's broken into the house. And when I screamed, he walked around the doorway into the hallway. And Tony, he was every bit as solid as you or I. He wasn't transparent. He wasn't translucent. He was absolutely, totally, completely solid. Started walking down the hallway toward me, his eyes locked with mine. And he wasn't malevolent, didn't have a malevolent look on his face, but he was kind of like, why is this little white kid screaming his head off? And I knew he was elderly because he had close cropped white hair and he had a white mustache. So I knew he had to be elderly. And I can tell you the clothes he had on. He had a red plaid flannel shirt on. He had khaki pants, black shoes, and a black belt. And as he got closer, I screamed bloody murder again. My parents started to come running, and he began to vanish until he was completely gone, just completely vanished. And my parents came in and they tried to comfort me and tell me it was just a bad dream. You just had a nightmare. And it was like, no, I know better. I saw somebody in the flesh that vanished. And my fright was so real that while my mother held me and tried to console me, my father actually went through the house, looked under all the beds, looked in the closets, checked all the doors and windows. And of course we were locked up tight. Nobody physical had intruded. And so they tried to get me to go back to sleep, which of course was a task and a half, because I was like, where did this guy come from? How did he show up? How did he vanish? Is he going to come back? What's he going to do? Is he going to want to talk to me? And I realized I had seen my first ghost. I couldn't articulate it that way, but I knew that's what had happened.
Right.
So I spent the next probably several weeks kind of looking over my shoulder all the time and having a very hard time getting to sleep. And these physical paranormal manifestations began to occur in my life that were occurring on the physical realm and witnessed by other people, including my parents. And it just dawned on me, again, being that young, I couldn't articulate it, couldn't express it this way. But at the time, it dawned on me intuitively, this guy came to open up the portal to these experiences. And somehow they're going to be important in my life down the road.
So he was kind of like the gatekeeper.
Yeah. So I was about, then I got to be about 6, and I was having all these physical paranormal manifestations and getting comfortable with those. And I was out in the backyard puttering around playing with a toy. And this car pulled into the driveway, and people inside I didn't know, I'd never met, never seen them. So I ran to the house to get my mom and dad, and I said, there's a car in the driveway. I don't know who these people are. And they said, okay, we'll come out and check. So they came out and said, oh, these are friends of ours. Well, I'd never met them. I didn't know my mom and dad had these friends. So I said, oh, okay. So I'm goofing around with my toy, and they got out of the car and were standing on the sidewalk talking to my mom and dad before they went in the house. And the longer they talked, I kind of got up closer, and I stood there and I looked up at everybody, and I looked at them, and I said, you folks have just been on vacation. And I said, you drove that car that's sitting in the driveway, and you took 2 kids with you. You have 2 kids. They're not with you today, but you have 2 kids, and you took them with you on vacation in that car. And you stayed at this hotel that was painted this color and had this many stories, and there were these trees out front, spaced at intervals that looked like this, and the pool area was painted this color and looked like this. And they were looking at me like, what in God's name? And the woman, literally, her jaw was agape, her eyes were bugged out. She was looking at me like I had cobras coming out my ears. And she looked at my mother and she went, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my mother said something like, oh, well, you know, kids and their imaginations. And she goes, no. How the hell could he possibly know that? That's what we were coming to tell you today, was about this vacation that we just took. We drove that car. We took our 2 kids with us. The hotel we stayed at's exactly like John described. How the hell could he possibly know that?
Wow.
And my parents were something like, John, go play now and leave us alone. I was like, okay, nice to meet you folks. And off I went. And I scared them so bad, they never came back to visit my parents again.
Now,
so, that's when I discovered that I could see into people's lives, could tell what had happened, could tell their emotions, their thoughts. And then I learned that I could also predict their futures accurately.
So you not just did mediumship, it was also psychic. So for the people out there, mediumship and psychic is a different type of talent.
Yeah, and in my case, it all melded together. And what I've done over the years, Tony, and studying the gift, I started to study when I was really young, and try and figure out, how can I make this better? How can I be more accurate? What's true? What's not? What works? What doesn't? And instead of saying, well, I'm a psychic, but I'm not a medium, or I'm a this, but I'm not a that, or whatever, I didn't put any of those lines of demarcation there. I didn't have any dividing lines. I just said, okay, if I want to learn how to do pendulums, I'm going to learn how to work a pendulum. If I want to use a Ouija board, I'm going to use a Ouija board. If I want to add crystal ball into the mix, I'm going to do that. If I want to learn about crystals, I'm going to do that. If I want to talk to the dead, I'm going to do that. If I want to see if I can manifest telekinesis, I'm going to do that. So I studied all of those things and didn't put any restrictions on myself. And so I have a wide experience and a wide range of abilities.
Well, in fact, somebody in the chat room, and it's kind of the question I was going to ask. I know your mom was like, oh, his imagination, but definitely she must have seen your imagination way before that. So did your mom and dad believe your abilities? Because I've heard many times from psychics that it's passed down through generations. Like mama, grandma, great grandma, they had the ability, they just never spoke of it. Right.
We had some of that lineage coming up to me, leading up to me. And my parents they saw the physical paranormal manifestations that were occurring, that were going on.
Wow.
So they couldn't deny that. And then they saw my developing gift. Now, my father was scared to death of it.
I'm sure.
He was an old stock farmer.
Right.
He owned a bar. He could handle himself in a bar fight, but the paranormal was invisible. He couldn't lay his hands on it. It came and went at its whims. It controlled him. And that freaked him out. But my mother's side of the family, they had more experiences and belief in the paranormal and psychic abilities and things. So she was much more comfortable with it. But they experienced it as I began to develop and begin to attract more and more of these paranormal experiences on the physical realm. They were the recipient of the experience of that. So my dad, needless to say, was freaked out a lot. I remember one time we were out working in the yard, and we would have these footsteps that would walk around the house on the concrete sidewalks, and you'd hear them loudly. It was like somebody with hard-to-sole boots on or high-heel shoes on walking around. And we were out there all one time working in the yard. Well, I was goofing around playing. My parents were working in the yard, and I was near them, and here the footsteps started. And my father threw down his hoe or rake or whatever he had, and he was like, "Who's there?" And he goes running around the house and checking in the house and everything. My mom and I were laughing our heads off because we knew he wasn't going to find anybody in the flesh. And he came back and we were like, see, Dad, these are the steps that are out here all the time. He's like, that's nonsense. Right. And then they would start up again and nobody would be there. And I think he finally gave up and went inside or something. It was like, so it pretty much freaked him out. But that's the way I grew up. And after having that initial experience of the old black man coming and opening all this up, I was never frightened again of anything. I was never scared again of any experience that I had. And they came so fast and so heavy and in such a great amount that it was just an ordinary everyday thing for me. That's how I lived. That's how I grew up. There was nothing frightening about it. Things were actually helpful in my life. And it was just, that was normal life for me.
What's funny is for the Marvel fans out there, for Thor, I don't know if you ever watched the movies Thor, but the gatekeeper was, this magnificent, muscular black man that opened up, and that's the first thing that popped into my head. I was like, "Oh, John is Thor."
This guy was the gatekeeper, maybe, but he did come to open all that up, and it's been a marvelous life. I've been fortunate to experience a lot of things, learn a lot of spiritual lessons. I've been able to help people all over the world. I've read for clients in over 40 countries.
Wow.
It just boggles my mind just to think about that privilege, and had thousands and thousands and thousands of clients over the years. And I get feedback all the time where people tell me how helpful my readings are for them, how accurate they've been for them, what a difference I've made in their lives. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't know if you ever heard of Char Margolis. She's a psychic also of 50 years. She's on my network, and I've learned so much just working with James Van Praagh and, John Edwards and all all these psychics. And it fascinates me because I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and people, I apologize that's heard this before, but I grew up in an old house. A banker built it back in the early 1900s. I saw a ghost, and when I was a kid, we heard the footsteps in the doors and all that stuff. But nobody ever saw it but me, except my nephew when he was about my age, when I was, like 8, maybe even 6. But he also saw an old man sitting in a chair, and his mother was like, "Oh my God." So my question to you before we jump into the book is why does people like me, we see that as a kid, we see a ghost, a spirit, we maybe even communicate with it. Some people hear it, some people see it, but why now as an adult, I don't necessarily, I may feel energy, but I don't see the energy like you. Why somebody like you being able to enhance and grow as a psychic, where I kind of lost that ability to see that?
Yeah. Well, we all have psychic ability to a degree. And the analogy that I always give people is we can all learn to play the piano. Now, some of us will study for a couple of years and do well to stumble through chopsticks, right? And in the meantime, there's this 5-year-old kid somewhere reading Beethoven and playing well enough to make you cry.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we all have our unique gifts and we all have our unique abilities. So we can all learn to play this piano to some degree. Some people are going to excel in it. We are all psychic to some degree, but some people are going to excel in that. Some people are going to have a much higher gift, much higher abilities, many more abilities, and those abilities grow and continue to grow. Like I said, I've done this professionally for over 50 years, and my abilities continue to develop and continue to grow. So it just varies from person to person. And it's like, you know, look, nobody gets to be a champion marathon runner. Not everybody gets to do that. Only a select few people are good enough to do that. And so we have to extrapolate that to other areas of life and say, okay, you know, it depends on the ability the person has, the gift they're given. And then if I hadn't chosen to work as hard on developing my gift as I did, I might not be where I'm at with it. Because when I was young, my mother introduced me to reading very early, and I had good reading comprehension, and I read voraciously. And about the age of 11, I began to study everything I could read, get my hands on in religion, psychology, parapsychology, the paranormal realm, the psychic realm. And I studied everything I could and put that into application to say, okay, does this work or not? If it didn't, I got rid of it. If it worked, I kept it. And then, and I studied and worked from there. And my constant, I guess, struggle or aim or goal or desire my entire life has been, how can I make this better? How can I get more accurate? How can I be better? And how can I better serve people with that as a result? So that's just my particular niche. That's just my particular gift.
No, I find that fascinating, and I know some people don't find their abilities until even later in life, from a near-death experience or a traumatic experience that, you know, opens up that third eye, or, you know, a different, you know, connection, and or maybe because they pay attention more to, you know, spiritually. But I know we're going to talk about your book, Writing with Ghosts, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead. And you didn't take this journey alone. You went with a hot, sexy girl called Melissa.
Yeah, that's my baby. That's my my Honda VTX 1300 CV twin. And I've been a biker since I was 15. Excuse me. And old school biker. You know, I was the guy that the party out at the lake didn't have a blanket or a sleeping bag, and they wanted me to stay. I rolled up my jean jacket, put it under my head for a pillow, lay down in the dirt by my bike, and that's how I slept. So I've been a biker all my life. On the current bike, Melissa, I've got almost 114,000 miles.
Wow.
So a lot of riding. Wow. And the way this book came about, it was really interesting. I had shot a TV pilot for the History Channel, which unfortunately never aired. And my producer and I became fast friends and decided to work on some more TV projects together. So he said, listen, why don't you write up a blog? Because I've had way over 1,000, and that's a conservative estimate, physical paranormal manifestations in my life that I've experienced on the physical realm.
Wow.
And a lot of time other people have seen them, experienced them. We've caught them on camera, film, recorded them, audio, so on and so forth. So he said, why don't you write up a blog that we can put on the net and refer people to, and just talk about, you know, just little short snippets of some of these experiences you've had. And that'll be kind of another, you know, sales tool that we can use when we approach TV producers, so on and so forth. I said, okay. So when I got this particular bike, I began to have some incredible, even for me, like bizarre, over the top, wonderful paranormal experiences that centered around my motorcycle rides. And I began to put some of those onto the blog. And as the experiences continued, it dawned on me that I needed to take those and expand them into the full story of what happened, include all the details, because there were some marvelous lessons that I learned through that and that I knew I could pass on to others, as well as they're highly entertaining to read. And so I thought, okay, I've got to take these and expand these, collect these, and put them into a book and leave that as a kind of a legacy. And that's what I did. And that's how Writing with Ghosts, Angels, and the Spirits was born. And then from that, I went into my second book, A Knock in the Attic, which is also out. And it was actually a prequel that leads up to that. And it talks about my life as a child, as a psychic, and how that developed and what it was like to grow up and come on up with that gift through that way. And now working on the third book, and hopefully it'll be out towards the end of the year. I'm a little behind on it, but it's going to be a lot of fun for people. It's 20 ways to increase your psychic abilities.
Oh, there we go.
And I take one technique per chapter. And I tell people, I define a technique, tell them exactly what it is, how to learn it step by step. Even if you've never done anything like it, I take you by the hand, walk you through it, teach you how to do it, and then the real world application of that technique, so it's useful to you in real life. So that's how the books got started.
Well, first of all, somebody in the chat room wants to know, where did the Melissa name come from? You know, because some people name them for reasons. So
Yep.
was this a brand new bike or was it a used bike?
Brand spanking new bike, sitting on the showroom floor without a mile on her. And when I met her, she told me her name was Melissa. And I said, okay.
So you believe every creature thing on this planet has some type of
energy, intelligence, soul, something.
Yeah.
Everything does. And for all you old school people out there, people of my age especially, if you'll remember back to the first car you had, it might have been an old beater. But when you took it to the car wash and cleaned it up and vacuumed it out and you polished it and then you cleaned the windows really good and got everything all sparkly, by God, it literally ran better for a few weeks after that.
Right.
So, things have an inherent intrinsic understanding, ability, intelligence, whatever. You say, well, intelligence, well, look, when we say intelligence, we think of human intelligence.
Right.
There's a lot of intelligence out there. There's animal intelligence. There's plant intelligence. There's tree intelligence. Science has done experiments with trees where they say that trees will send chemicals out through their roots, warding other trees off, saying, hey, this is my turf. Trees of one type will recognize their own kind and help them to grow while trying to kind of stunt or push aside other trees. So there's intelligence in everything out there. It's not human intelligence, but it's an intelligence. And I believe that's intrinsic in everything.
Yeah, no, I remember when I started hearing about tree huggers, and I was like, what are you talking about, a tree hugger? But when you actually grab a tree, or even a rock, you can feel energy pulsing into your body. At least I can. And
absolutely.
I wasn't necessarily overly skeptic. I was just like, oh, it's a tree. But then when you start really thinking about it, you're like, everything on this planet that's alive, or even not alive, was created from energy. Rock was created from energy. Everything.
Let's talk about a rock for just a second. I love crystals and I love rocks.
Oh yeah.
And I found this rock in my yard, very unusual rock. And so it spoke to me right away and I brought it in. And since I've had this rock, I've had it about a month, maybe two, something like that. And a rock is, as we know, if you pick up a rock, set it on your desk, it's inanimate, it doesn't move around. Its appearance is what it is.
Right.
This rock has changed colors, changed appearance, and changed textures many, many, many times since I've had it. And on top of that, there are these little white blooms that come up from within the rock to the surface and form, like they will form the signs of ruins and like give me a ruin message.
Oh, wow.
There's a particular sigil that I came up with that I developed many, many years ago. That sigil appeared in this white stuff on the rock. Right. And then it'll disappear. It'll vanish. And so everything has the potential to communicate something to us if we'll be open to that and respectful of that. And this is one of the most mind-blowing experiences I've ever had with anything like that.
I love it. So, this journey of writing this book, you'd had to travel. So when you went on, I'm all about being spontaneous. I used to jump in the car. I still do. I jump in the car on a weekend or even a Saturday, Sunday, and I just get in the car and I start driving. I don't really know where I'm going. I just want to.
Follow your nose. Yep.
I just follow my nose. I like to explore. I call it my journeys.
Absolutely.
So was that kind of your premise of this bike rides, or is it like one long vacation, or was it like multiple smaller vacations and then you just wrote about it?
Well, it was multiple rides, and most of those rides would start out just, I'm following my nose whichever I go this day, and the experiences then would attend whatever ride that I took and whatever destination that I went to. And some of the rides were guided, like I write about the opening chapter is the ride to Tallahassee, Florida, our state's capital, and the prompting, the urge that I had to go there. And then in the book, it makes clear the reason why, which was really dramatic. It brought closure to something that happened 1,000 miles away and years earlier. So that was a really dynamic thing. But a lot of the rides were just, I was there, and then the other side decided to, hey, let's give this guy a demonstration, And not only was it a very entertaining thing, and it's entertaining for the readers, people who give me the feedback that, yeah, I learned something from this, but it's entertaining. It's good reading. But not only is the entertainment factor there, there's things that I learned from these experiences. And then I tried to impart that, pass that on to the reader, say, hey, what can you learn from this? What do you get from this? Without being preachy or didactic or anything like that. Just, look, here's something to consider about the spiritual realm. And we have so many misconceptions about the spiritual realm, about the psychic and the paranormal realm. And, there's one of my pet peeves is like the shows on TV. That's not reality when it comes to dealing with the paranormal. And one of my pet peeves has always been to try and get out there and communicate to people, look, this is what it's really like. And you don't have to fear it. You don't have to be frightened of it. And I've had readers tell me, man, it was a blessing to have John tell me, hey, I can interact with this realm without fear, and it can help me and guide my life and, help me to live more positively. So that's one of the things that I wanted to promote in these books. And not only is it real, but it's not something you have to fear. It's something you can learn to tune into and make your life better as a result.
Well, I think I don't want to give the book away, and I want people to buy the book, but when you go to, let's say, Tallahassee or, these haunted homes or Civil War, battlefields, is your intention specifically to connect, or more just going to see the location? Or was it specifically wanting to connect with the spirit?
It was both, because I love being on the bike. Can't be on the bike enough. That's always a joy and a pleasure.
Right.
So just that act alone, is a great day. But then to get the added benefit of a powerful paranormal experience or a spiritual experience with that, it's just, how can it get any better? It was just phenomenal. And the as far as a specific destination or specific guidance, the gift never turns off. It's always on. Right. It's always there. So if I'm in the car going to the grocery store, there'll be things happen in the grocery store, and a lot of times other people will witness and all that type of thing. But just being on the bike, it was a very unique thing for that first book, because there's a freedom on the bike that you don't get any other way.
Right.
And I love cars. I had a hot rod when I was a kid, hot rod 57 Chevy Bel Air, and love that car. The hot rods are great, but you do something on a bike, it's just different than anything else. You feel more grounded. You feel more connected with everything, with the road, with the nature, with everything. And then that just kind of enhances whatever spiritual paranormal experience attends that. So it was just the best of both worlds. It was the best of everything all the way around.
Do you think, because I've heard both. I heard some people say that, spirit is never a negative. Maybe they're trapped, and so the fear or anger of dying or may come across as a negative spirit. But do you believe that they're negative spirits that could threaten us, or is it just the energy feels heavy that makes it feel fearful, like to make you put in that fear in you?
Yeah, I think it's just the energy from whatever negative experience may be there that we pick up on. I have done a jillion paranormal investigations. I started doing paranormal investigations at the age of 11.
Wow.
And I've done some very high profile ones, as well as just, a lot of quote unquote run the mill type stuff. And I have never been pinched, bitten, hurt, pushed, kicked, threatened, or anything else in all of these paranormal investigations I've done. Now, I'm not going to say that, excuse me, everything in the spiritual realm is all, light and roses, because I don't believe that either. I mean,
Right.
you extrapolate, from your experience here on Earth. On Earth, we have bad people, we have evil people.
Right.
And so in the spiritual realm, there's got to be room for that as well. But I think it's drastically overplayed, drastically misinterpreted. I think our knee-jerk reaction, especially if you've been raised as a Christian and you've been taught that anything outside the Bible or anything outside the church is demonic, satanic, evil, malevolent, or whatever, that's going to be your default position if you experience something from the paranormal. And that's not the case. It's not evil. It's not malevolent. It's not this. And then we have misinterpretation. I remember when I was shooting the pilot, this, excuse me, this woman came to me and she said, I have to talk to you. This ghost tried to kill me. I said, no ghost tried to kill you. And she said, yes, this ghost tried to kill me. I said, okay, when we got a break in filming, we'll talk. And so she told me she was in her kitchen. She said, I swear to God, she said, the door opens in the cupboard. This plate comes out all by itself, flies across the room, hits the wall about 2 feet away from me and shatters into pieces. The ghost tried to kill me. So the ghost didn't try and kill you, wasn't even trying to hurt you. I said, what I perceive psychically is that for a long time, the other side has been trying to communicate with you because they have some specific things they need to get through to you and some specific guidance that you need to be given.
Right.
And you're turning a deaf ear to it and you're afraid of it. And they're finally like, okay, ignore this. You're not going to be able to.
Right. I'm going to throw a dish.
I'm going to throw a dish. You're not going to ignore this any longer. But the default reaction was, oh, it's dangerous or trying to kill me or whatever. And that wasn't the case. So we have a lot of misinterpretation there. And then I've been called sometimes to consult with people that believe they've been scratched or threatened. Or
I was going to ask about that.
I'm not saying this is always the case, but so far, what I've experienced is people that have had mild to severe mental illness, drug abuse, alcoholism, hallucinations, or misinterpretation of an event that they interpreted to be something that was negative or whatever. So that's what I've experienced so far. And I think that we misinterpret a lot of what's out there. And, what's really funny, you were talking about, maybe somebody died in a particular area in a violent way and that left behind a negative energy. Here in Florida, there's Matanzas Inlet, and it's on the beach. There's an inlet on one side, the ocean's on the other. You can sit there and picnic, and there's restaurants around, and it's absolutely gorgeous. You get out there on a day with blue skies and sunshine. There's the ocean and the salt air, and right there on the sand where you're picnicking, there were all these soldiers slaughtered. And that's what Matanzas means, is slaughter. Matanzas Inlet, slaughter. And you can look it up online. All these soldiers were killed, slaughtered on that part of land that you're sitting there picnicking on. And you know what? It doesn't necessarily have any negative energy to it. It has a peaceful, nice, pleasant energy. And yet all these people died on that spot. So, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It kind of depends on the particular energies of an area and what happens there afterwards, and a lot of different things. Depends on a lot of things.
Now, was there any location that you went on your ride with Melissa that did come across kind of heavy? Maybe not heavy, but maybe just overwhelming?
Yeah. I went to Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia. And for those not familiar, Bonaventure Cemetery is mentioned in the book and the movie Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, and a lot of famous people buried there, and this old Gothic, beautiful cemetery. And so I went, I took my film camera, my digital voice recorder, and I was going to try and get some ghost photos and try and get some EVP, some electronic voice phenomena. So I'm goofing around the cemetery, and it's really a beautiful place. It's a gorgeous place. Big tourist destination. I mean, they have trash cans all over the place outside. They have a visitor center, and you can come in. There's soda pops, and there's a pop machine, and like a vending machine and things, and benches and things where you can sit outside. So it's really kind of unusual. And I'm going back through the back of the cemetery, and I've taken some pictures and I've done some EVP. And I get back toward the Willamette River back in the background. It's really pretty. And I turn around and I see this little grave that's about 2 feet long, 2 or 3 feet long, and a little tombstone. And it's of a child. And the child had died when it was like, super young. And it just hit me in the heart. And I was like, man, here I am, this grizzled old biker. I'm no deserving of life more than anybody else. Here, this young child died and never even got to taste life, never even got to experience life. And think of how the parents hurt, and think of the tragedy they experienced, went through, the emotions they went through. And it just devastated me. It just hurt me. And I sit there and I said, damn. And I meant it as a curse for the reaper. How dare your scythe fall on someone so young and tender? And it just really, really upset me. And I turned on my recorder and I said, does anyone have anything they want to say? And I waited a few seconds, then I stopped the recorder, and I had to pack my gear up because I had to ride back, get home, get ready for my clients the next day. So I couldn't stay. So I had to hightail it and get back. So the next day I'm going through the photos, didn't get any ghost photographs, darn it. I have successfully gotten ghost photos before, but no spirit photographs that day. And I'm listening to the EVP recordings I'd made, and nothing. And I get to the last EVP that I recorded standing by that small child's grave. And this voice clearly says, "Are you angry?" And that was right after I had cursed, said, damn.
Right.
And then for the reaper, this voice said, "Are you angry?" So that was a pretty heavy moment. That was pretty significant.
And how do you, when you feel overwhelmed or maybe it's some negative energy, how do you deal with that? And how, for people out there listening, how would you suggest someone deal with an energy that's coming? Because that could be anywhere. I mean, I've had people walk into the room, alive, and I feel a heaviness and energy I don't like being around on a living person. Exactly. But how do you deal? Because I can walk out the room, but how do you deal with that energy? And what's your suggestions?
Well, the best way to deal with it: don't do anything you don't feel comfortable doing. If somebody says, "Hey, let's use a Ouija board," and the idea of that scares you to death,
right?
Don't do it. If somebody says, "Let's go to this haunted house," "Oh, I don't think I'm up for that." Don't do it. That's one of the ways that you handle it. So you stay away from environments that would tend to inflict that upon you in the first place. In the second place, you want to keep yourself light. You want to keep yourself upbeat. You want to keep yourself happy and positive. That's one of the things that will go a long way towards helping you deal with anything like that. And for me, look, like I say, I'm an old grungy, grizzled biker, and I've been in places that I've been in bars that, man, cops were scared to go into. And so for me, it's just kind of part and parcel of the world. It's kind of like, okay, not a hell of a lot out there that scares me or makes me uncomfortable. So, go with your comfort level, whatever your comfort level is. And not everybody's cut out to be a paranormal investigator. Not everybody's cut out to do this. And so, just pay attention to your comfort level and deal with yourself accordingly.
Does it take, like, Civil War locations of battles? Does it take, how I say, when you go to like Civil War battlegrounds,
right,
and there's thousands and thousands of people had died there. Like you said, there could be a lot of people that have died, but you don't really feel a negative energy or heavy energy. But when you go to locations like this, do you personally see every one of these people that died, or because or is it just a select few? And why is that? Why only, say, 1,000 people died, but only like 20 show up?
Well, we don't know all the mechanisms of communication with the other side. We wish we did, but we don't. We're just we're still lacking in that. We're still learning. We're still trying to figure that out. But when I go to a place like that, and I went to a Civil War battlefield, and I write about that in my first book, and the experience I had there, and I could sense a multitude of spirits there, but it was kind of confined to a few that were really, I guess, the most communicative or the most example the most gave me the most example of what they had experienced there. And it was, for me, a very sombering experience. And I think the thing that made me the most somber was I was expecting to go to the Civil War battlefield and experience the sense of overwhelming grief or anxiety or whatever. And it wasn't like that at all. And what was really odd for me was that when I picked up on the participants in the battle, the soldiers, there was almost this overwhelming sense of almost sometimes glee. This, let's go get them. Let's blow this guy's head off and let's run this guy through the sword.
They were still in fight mode, huh?
Yeah. And it was like they were ready for the fight and happy to fight and anxious to fight. And it was like, man, what's wrong with us? And as a species, we're that way.
Yeah. And
that came through to me in getting the essence of what happened there at the Civil War battlefield. I thought, my God, what the hell is wrong with us as a species? The late Stanton Friedman said that, if you looked at the way that we spend our wealth on this planet, every new frontier is a new place with which to do battle with somebody else.
Right.
And that's the way we tend to just look at things. And that's why the peacemakers try and work to say, hey, wait a minute, let's fix this thing. Let's we don't have to be this way. And it's the example I give in the book. The Baptist church up the street can't get along with the Baptist church down the street. And this preacher can't get along with that preacher. This religion can't get along with that religion. We all have all these differences and everything. And when you come down to day's end, nobody, when pressed, can say, here's the truth, this is the right way, because they can't give you an example that it is. They can't provide any proof. And so that's one of the things that hit me there at that battlefield. And then I had another thought that was really heavy, and I don't really have an answer for to this day. I thought, if I was your enemy on this side and we both die and we're on the other side, am I still your enemy there? Are you still my enemy there?
Oh, yeah.
Are we still willing to take up the fight in the spiritual realm? Or do you go to a place where you can get some common sense and reason and kind of say, hey, what in God's name are we doing here? So, yeah, hopefully so. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're just uncertain about on the other side. We just don't know. I wish we did, but we don't.
Well, I know you also, we're talking about, a lot of, white men, especially in the battles of the religion, Christianity, and everyone had their own beliefs and this and that. But also you got to visit a haunted forest, Native American Indian spirit. And I've talked to many Native Americans, and I am so fascinated with their spirituality, the connection with the earth and the animals and the sky and the water. Do you feel there's more of a, even though they battled too, they fought in their own wars. They did their own wars too, but right. But did you feel like a more of a spiritual connection with the Native American spirit versus, or is it kind of similar with all spirits?
Well, it's similar with all spirits, but I agree with you in that I think the Native Americans had a much closer relationship to the realm of true spirit than the white man did, and so on and so forth. And like you said, they had their foibles, they had their battles, they treated each other horribly and did horrible things, but they had that closeness to the spiritual realm that a lot of people don't. I remember, I'm very sorry for my voice. It's allergy season here.
It's all right.
It's really bad, so I do apologize.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
I remember talking to an Assemblies of God minister one time that went to try and evangelize these Native Americans on a reservation.
Right.
And he was telling the story that he went and talked to these people, and they were like, well, you've got your book and your God up in the sky and whatever. I go out and talk to my God and see signs that my God's listening to me and have these manifestations. What have you got? And the Assemblies of God preacher came back and he was talking to this other preacher. He said, how do you answer that? What do you do with that? I was at a loss,
Right.
And I think that's there's so much truth to that. that the the Native Americans in the past have lived so close to nature and so close to the realm of spirit, and had these experiences and had connections with their spirit guides, with their animal totems, with the intuitive process and all this. So I think that's true. But as far as one feeling different from the other when I connect with them spiritually,
Same.
It really doesn't. They all feel about the same.
Right. Now, before, I can't believe time's going by so fast, but do some of these come with messages? Let's say like the Native American, they come and present themselves, but do any of these trips come to you with a message of, what exactly happened there, or, missing person, or, I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of times that there will be a specific message from a specific individual at a place. And it may be, this happened to me there and I want somebody to know that. Or this happened to our group here and that needs to be known. Or here's something that we learned and you can learn from this. You can pass this on. This will help you and this will help others. And I remember when I went to Hontoon Island and I had that experience with a Native American spirit, afterwards, when they literally saved my life that day, afterwards, when I would meditate on them and connect with them at a distance, they would show me things about the way that they lived and the drinks that they made and the things that they ate and the things that they did and how they lived life. And so some of that information is critically important to these people for us to realize, we had a life here in this manner. This is how we live. This is what we did. This is what you can learn from that. This is what you can take from that. And the fact that their spirits continue to live on and that they do come back and sometimes give us guidance, inspiration, help. Like that day, that the Indian spirit I write about in the book literally saved my life that day. And so, there's all these, there's a myriad reasons that people will hang around an area or come back or communicate with us.
Yeah, and that's what Mark in the chat room said that kind of what we were talking about. Having first, he says, has exploring the paranormal at these historical sites changed your perspective on that specific event? Then he said, in other words, experienced spirits at these sites have anything revealed that's typically omitted from history, which is kind of what you're saying. So,
oh yeah, and one of those things, excuse me, what was really interesting. I'm sorry. What was really interesting when I shot the TV pilot for the History Channel, we went to Ford's Theater to explore the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and there's a museum there down below, and they have artifacts. Some are real, some are recreations, but they had the door that went into the presidential box, and there was a placard, and it said, John Wilkes Booth drilled a hole in the door so that he could look in and see where Lincoln was at when he was seated so he could burst through and shoot him. And my guys on the other side said, nope, that's not the way it happened. And they told me, and I told the film crew, the production crew, I said, no, Booth didn't drill this hole. He had this hole drilled by someone that worked in the theater that wouldn't arouse suspicion by being there and drilling the hole. So when we got through shooting the pilot, we had Lincoln experts, we had historians, we had the production people from the production crew. They all went and did research to validate, to see if they could validate a lot of the things that I had picked up on and said, and they were able to do that. And in particular, the hole in the door was, they found out, sure enough, they found conclusive historical evidence that the door in the hole was not drilled by Booth, but by a workman in the theater.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so that was one of the neat things to be able to do, was to say, okay, this is how it really happened, by the power of the spirits on the other side that can, show that information from the past in an accurate way to correct a historical error, basically.
I love it. Well, last thing I want to know is, truth be told, as you can see, when we first opened up, we opened up with an alien. We always open up with an alien. Yeah, and I think, as we know, a lot of people are comparing, Bigfoots and angels and aliens kind of could be all wrapped up in one. What are your thoughts on extraterrestrials and the sightings, and what is your belief they're here for?
Well, I've had several UFO experiences, and I've had UFO experiences in daylight with multiple witnesses. I believe that they are extraterrestrial craft, extraterrestrial vehicles. I believe that Bigfoot exists as a separate entity. I believe all these other things exist as a separate entity. We can all put it under the umbrella of paranormal, but there are all these distinct things under that umbrella that we can discern and define. They don't necessarily relate. Now, I think there are some paranormal activities related to UFOs because I've experienced that. I write about that in my books. And there seems to be some paranormal component to UFO experiences. Not always, but sometimes. And but I do believe UFOs are a separate entity, a separate thing unto themselves. I believe they're extraterrestrial beings. I believe there's several races of them. Why are they here? I don't know. What's their purpose? I don't know. We could go on if we had more time, because I have a really good argument that postulates that our government has got to know more than what they're telling us. And unfortunately, we're out of time, but we could go
part
into
two.
That maybe.
Yeah, definitely a part two, and you'll have to come back. And
Absolutely.
For all the people out there that want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Go to johnrussell.net. That's my main website. Tells you all about me. If you want to schedule a reading with me, you can do that. Just to give you an idea, I'm scheduling in March of next year right now. I have a very busy clientele. Yeah. And so that's where you can find all about me. When the page loads, you'll see photos of my book covers. You can click on those. It'll take you to Amazon where you can buy the books. And so that's where you'll find all the information you need to know.
Well, perfect. Well, John, thank you so much. You are I can tell your spirit is great underneath that meat suit. So I appreciate you being here. And just to let you know and everybody else know, April 1st, yes, that's April Fool's Day, 2023, I have created a festival, award show and film festival award show exclusively for the paranormal genre. It's called Parapod, and you can go to parapodfestival.com, check it out. We're going to have speakers, and maybe John will have to come out and be a part of it. So
I'd be delighted.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. And John, thank you so much for being part of Truth Be Told. And hopefully,
Tony, I appreciate it. I've had a blast being here. Appreciate all the listeners, and thank you for putting up with my voice. And
oh, please. We was hoping your puppy would jump in and make himself known, but he actually did a good.
Somewhere else and doing something else, but
right.
Next time. So.
Well, and for everybody out there, if you want more Truth Be Told, you can watch every Monday at 3:00 with Robert Hensley. It's called MINUTEMAN Report. Wednesdays at 3, you have Bonnie Burkert doing Transformation of Truth Be Told, and then of course me every Friday. So I'll see you this coming Friday at 3. For another episode. So until then, thank you guys, and thank you everybody, and please support John at johnrussell.net. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye. This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows.